Good day and welcome to the Lillyroddyshow, coming to you from the LRS studios here in Houston, Texas. So glad to have you with me as we look at the week of November the 8th through the 14th of 2015. We've had some real blustery weather here in Houston with lots of rain, some flooding sadly, but cooler temperatures. I hope your fall weather is not as wet as it is here in Houston. And of course, in the chart of Houston, we're having a strong Neptune transit, which often brings more wet weather. Houston will still be under the influence of Neptune for a while, which means more rain. If you would like to get in touch with me, you can always reach me at Lillyroddyshow@AOL.com, Lillyroddyshow.com, or find us on Twitter, Pinterest, and Facebook. And remember, it's Lilly Roddy Show, otherwise you'll get my personal page. And if you haven't taken the time, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and you'll get notice when my new show comes online. Well, let's take a look at the week of November the 8th through the 14th. Overall, this is a better week for all of us, since the planets don't really have any harsh lineups as we've had over the last couple of weeks. We do have two long void moons this week. The one that may impact you the most will be on Monday, November 9th, as the moon is void all day until 10:02 p.m. And additionally, there are no aspects on that day. And what that means is there's not a lot of energy to draw on externally. The moon does move into Scorpio at 10:02 p.m., and we are no longer under the void moon. The other long void moon day will impact us on Saturday, November the 14th, again for the majority of the day. On Saturday, the moon is void for most of the day until 6:21 p.m. when the moon enters Capricorn. With void moons, you'll be operating from a more internal or a more emotional-based response. You may not just want to deal with a lot of things outside of your own personal environment. Also this week on Sunday, November 8th, Venus enters Libra at 9:31 a.m. She remains in Libra until December 4th, 2015, when she enters Scorpio. Venus in Libra, this is her home sign, is a time when we'll all look at whether or not our needs and desires are being satisfied by the people we create partnerships and relationships with. And since Libra is an air sign, these evaluations are based on principles about balance and fairness rather than emotional content when Venus would move through a water sign. If you're looking for a relationship, Venus in Libra is a good time to put yourself out there. Mars also moves into Libra, and that occurs on Thursday, November the 12th at 3:41 p.m. Mars remains in Libra until January 3rd, 2016, when Mars enters Scorpio, the best place for Mars. Mars is the planet of selfness and is in a sign of Libra, the sign of relationships and harmony. Usually we don't consider that Mars in Libra is a good place for Mars to be, but that's not necessarily true. Mars in Libra is about you determining what's best for you in a relationship and standing your ground on that issue. Mars in Libra will cause all of us to speak up more about what we feel the lack of inequities and unfairness are in relationships. We'll be able to watch this action, especially as Mars moves through Libra and squares the Cancer planets in the USA chart. We may be dealing with military threats as Mars moves through Libra, or a challenge to some of our existing international relationships. And on a personal level, if you're single and are interested in finding a relationship partner, Mars in Libra gives you plenty of energy to do that. On Tuesday, December the 10th, we have two strong aspects occurring: Mercury sextile Pluto, and Sun sextile Jupiter. And on Friday, November the 13th, we have two strong aspects: Venus sextile Saturn, Mercury sextile Jupiter. All four of these aspects are actually fairly positive and should help us throughout the whole week. The Mercury sextile Pluto aspect, which is at its peak on the 10th, helps us to sharpen our detective skills. This is a good aspect for puzzle solving. Also, the Sun sextiles Jupiter, and that will help us to have a more hopeful and optimistic picture for the future. It may also be an easier time to understand larger concepts. On Friday, November the 13th, Venus sextiles Saturn. Now, this aspect will help us to make better use of our resources, and a lot of those resources will be people you've known that can help you. This is an excellent time for any type of long-term commitment, business-wise or personal. And also on that day, Mercury sextiles Jupiter. When Mercury and Jupiter combine, we're better able to communicate our ideas and ideals, and people are generally more open-minded as well. This is a great energy to be writing or getting your message across to a larger audience. On Wednesday, November the 11th, we have a new moon at 19 Scorpio at 11:47 a.m. on Veterans Day. The new moon in Scorpio will have us wanting to look back at our deeper or more unconscious emotional drives that affect our sense of trust and intimacy with those closest to us. Okay. Well, this week I thought I might focus on Neptune and how it moves through our chart and some of the effects that we experience when Neptune visits us. Now, I talked a little bit about Neptune last week when I talked about planet cycles. So first, let's look at how Neptune moves. It takes Neptune approximately 165 years to go around the zodiac, and she spends approximately 13.75 years in each sign. When Neptune makes contact with any of our planets, her intent is to question the illusion of our reality, make us want to have our whole life better, and the awareness that it's not. That's really part of this. And to find something in our life that gives our life meaning over and above the unconscious day-to-day routines that most of us follow. Now, when Neptune moves in and starts to have an impact on your life, one of the very first things that happens is that we become incredibly confused and begin to question certain truths that we've held to be true during our whole life. Neptune is akin to a spiritual pilgrimage, where the intent is the pilgrimage, not the destination. In Eastern religious cultures, this need for spiritual pilgrimage or time to commune with nature is integrated more into their lives. In the West here, we feel that we have to open up inside of us. We feel nothingness, and we don't know what to do about it. And we can't just go off and, go to Mecca. In the West, we normally deal with it through therapy or drugs or antidepressants. It's not that we don't have a spiritual pilgrimage in the West. We just seem to do it very differently. And we want it done as soon as possible, so to get you back to work. And I can tell you, Neptune just doesn't care about those things. As humans, we experience two strong Neptune periods in our lives. The first big Neptune transit we all have is at 39 and 40, when Neptune's at a right angle or has moved 90 degrees from its original position in our birth chart. This is one of the planet transits that I mentioned last week. And the Neptune square Neptune transit, which this one is the awakening that something is missing in our lives. This occurs for all of us right around the beginning of our midlife cycle, and the midlife occurs between 39 and 44 years old. The next big Neptune transit we all do as humans occurs at 82, when Neptune opposes Neptune. I also talked about this last week, when older people often experience a sense of loss and purpose in their life, but because they're older, they don't really feel like they're going to live much longer, different from we experience that Neptune in our early part of our life at 39 and 40. In reality, Neptune transits are made contact with Neptune transits can make contact with any of your planets in your chart at any time during your entire life. It's just at 39 and 40 and around 82 that we experience the impact of Neptune as humans, as a group of people. I believe that what a Neptune transit does, it opens your mind's eye to see the world from a totally different perspective. And what happens is there's a lot of things that you thought were true, or what was the most important thing to you, or something you couldn't live without, potentially becomes totally unimportant. Part of this comes from the perspective that we believe that having a strong sense of goal orientation and making something out of your life is what we all should be doing, which is purely a Saturn perspective. And of course, in the USA, we have Saturn in our 10th house, so certainly we would believe those things. Neptune doesn't have that perspective, the Saturn perspective, and isn't interested in resolution, commitments, and is especially adverse to doing things that other people expect you to do. I often say to my clients that when Neptune comes along, you find that you don't want to live up to the person you've created. When Neptune makes contact with our planets, we're not able to live under the same limitations and definitions that we did in the past. And since Neptune increases our psychic sensitivity to everything around us, it's more than common to see people moving into a hermit phase, where most of them retreat from social activities unless they just have to do it. When Neptune makes contact with your sun, we question who we are and our life purpose. When Neptune makes contact with your moon, we are made more aware about the things in our family that have been purposefully hidden from us, purposefully. How we feel about ourselves and how we nurture ourselves is the most important thing with Moon Neptune. When Neptune makes contact with Mercury, our psychic world expands, and we have a harder time finding the words and definitions for things that we encounter. When Neptune makes contact with your Venus, your ideals about relationships fall from their great heights. You're forced to see the truth about your partner, and you may wonder, who is that stranger I married? When Neptune makes contact with your Mars, we may retreat from the outside world and focus on the self. As Neptune makes contact with your Jupiter, we may find that our religious views and beliefs are in direct contradiction to spirituality that we're looking for via Neptune. Neptune awakens us to our own spiritual and religious prejudices. When Neptune makes contact with your Saturn, our whole sense of social expectation and career goals don't seem to really fit in terms of what we want from life. It can be a time where people start the career that they've always wanted to have, and sometimes it just represents retirement. When Neptune makes contact with your Uranus, we're reminded of our youth and our need to wonder and explore. We do not want to fit in with any sort of social expectations or demands on our lives. We only want to do what we want to do. When Neptune makes contact with Neptune, we question our core spiritual intent and our life purpose. And finally, when Neptune makes contact with your Pluto, you're not able to hold back and protect others from your intensity and your passion. You finally have to integrate that into your life and live a more authentic life. No matter what planet Pluto makes contact with, it's always time to be the hermit or to retreat from our schedules, social expectations, relationships, and even our friends. With Neptune, you can only be drawn to do things. You can't set a goal and then try to reach it. That's not how Neptune works. Opportunities come to you because of the Neptune transit and allow you to see how much better your life can be instead of you having to do everything on your own. Nevertheless, it's very hard to have a Neptune transit and to try to keep your normal life going like you usually do. Neptune is simply the need to retreat from our day-to-day routines so that we can have time to find ourselves once again. Well, that's really, that's a good Neptune way to look at those things. Well, anyway, thank you for joining me this week as we look at November the 8th through the 14th of 2015 and some of the influences that transiting Neptune has affected us all individually and culturally. Please join me next week as we look at November the 5th through the 21st of 2015. This is the Lilly Roddy Show, coming to you from the LRS studios here in Houston, Texas, reminding you to keep those stars in your eyes. Bye-bye.